Hi everyone, it's Kelly here. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time. Welcome back if you've been before. Lovely to have you either way. On this channel we talk books, and today I am wrapping up the month of June 2023 in terms of the books that I have been reading, and I'm going to share my thoughts about those books. So I read 5 books this month, and it was, generally speaking, a pretty good reading month. There were 2 books in particular that I really enjoyed that I read. One that I was not particularly fond of, and 2 that were, you know, probably just sort of middle of the road, pretty decent, but not anything to write home about, I guess. So the first book that I read was The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. I read this as an audiobook, and this was quite an enjoyable read. I gave it 3.5 stars. There were lots of unexpected twists and turns. There was a bit of unexpected spice, and there was this sort of unfolding mystery that really took right until the end to kind of completely unfold. It was enjoyable. It was compelling. I wanted to keep going back to it and find out what happened. So it was enjoyable in that way. One thing I will say though is that the way things wrapped up at the end of the book felt a little bit too neat to me, but it was otherwise a pretty good book. So I would recommend, if you're up for seances and sort of the unexplained, etc. Yeah, it was interesting. The second book that I read was a graphic novel called Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. I spoke about this book in my mid-year freakout tag video. This I gave 5 stars to. It was super enjoyable, very wholesome. I loved the characters in the book, the relationship between them, the way that their relationship kind of evolved. It was suspenseful. It was, you know, kind of moved along at a good pace. It's also, I should say, colour throughout. So it's not just a colour cover and then black and white inside. It's a full colour graphic novel. And it was lovely. I enjoyed it. I really cared about the characters by the end. I've got a cat that's scratching a box, if you can hear that noise in the background. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I really cared about the characters. I really cared about how things were going to resolve for them and in the situation. So yeah, I would highly recommend. This was lovely, and yeah, I loved it. 5 stars. The next book that I read was a book from the long list of the Miles Franklin Award, and it was Losing Face by George Haddad. This is one that didn't make it through to the shortlist, and personally, I'm okay with that because I didn't particularly enjoy this book. It's a complex one, and I will say, content warning, I'm going to talk a little bit about sexual assault as part of this, because the kind of central thing that happens in this book is a sexual assault. That so there's 2 protagonists that are kind of alternating telling the story. One is the boy who's involved in the sexual assault, and the other is his grandmother. So it is, you know, I thought this was going to be more compelling than it was, but I felt like it just touched too lightly on too many things, and was heavy-handed in places where it didn't, it felt like that wasn't particularly necessary. So, for example, in the section where we're talking about sexual assault, and basically what happens is our protagonist is there and kind of compelled to be involved, but isn't really involved. So it's sort of like a very kind of nuanced situation, I guess, in terms of his involvement in the sexual assault. Basically, you know, it's a group of young men who kind of pick up this girl on the train, and then, you know, unspeakable things occur. And it's sort of like then about the fallout, and there's like conversations around consent and so on as well that are part of that. And I just felt like that conversation about consent wasn't nuanced enough. So it really kind of fell flat in that way. And the other thing that sort of didn't feel as nuanced as it needed to be was about sort of, there was another theme of like toxic family kind of vibes, I guess. And I felt like those weren't explored at enough depth to have anything to say. So it sort of didn't, I got to the end of this book and I was like, what was he trying to say? Like, what was the message of this book? What was he trying to get across? Because it felt like he was touching on these topics that really could have been explored very deeply and just not doing that. So sort of in that way, it almost felt like they were there just for shock value maybe, or like so that it was hard hitting, but it didn't end up really being hard hitting because the exploration wasn't deep enough, unfortunately. And I feel like it needed a good edit, basically. I think a good edit would have really helped to refine what this book was trying to achieve. I also felt like, because I often do enjoy books that have alternating narrators, because it sort of feels as though, you know, you're kind of getting two sides of the story, or the story's building through two different perspectives. We had more from the young man than we did from Grandma. And Grandma's story kind of felt like it didn't really go anywhere. And that was really disappointing, because she was a good character. I really quite liked her. So her perspective got lost behind Joey's, the other main character. Yeah. Disappointing. It was disappointing. So this was 2.5 stars from me. I'm glad that I read it, but I am glad to be returning it to the library and that I didn't buy it for myself. Okay, the next one was much more whimsical. It was a book that I picked up when I was secondhand shopping, which I love to do. I love to go secondhand shopping looking for books, and I found this one, Business Cat Hostile Takeovers by Tom Fonda. This is, what I thought it was going to be was like a series of comic strips, which I guess it kind of is, but they're linked. It's an actual kind of story. There's more to it, you know, than just, you know, it's a linked story that goes all the way through. So that was interesting. Not what I was expecting, but it was enjoyable. It was good fun, cohesive story. Which was, as I say, a surprise. But yeah, it was good. I gave it 3.5 stars. Nothing to write home about, but it was, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. Okay, and the last book that I read was a book from my nonfiction, for my nonfiction challenge, which was Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty. This was delightful. I really, really enjoyed this. It was so hard to believe that the author was 14 years old when he was writing this book, because essentially this is a year of him like documenting his life. He is an autistic person, and so he's sort of talking about things through an autistic lens, but he's also just someone who is really, really who loves nature and loves to be out in nature, exploring, you know, natural environments, and sort of is filled with wonder in that way, and it sort of seems like it's a thing that his whole family is into, which was really nice to read about. So yeah, I highly recommend this. It's not a super long book. It was probably about 250 pages or so. Let's see, less than that, 220. So yeah, like it was definitely a very achievable read, and because it's in a sort of diary format, it was something that I was able to kind of pick up and put down and then pick up again, and it didn't feel like I was losing the thread of anything. So that was really, really good. He writes so eloquently, so poetically, and I really enjoyed the writing style in this book. And his passion was so evident for nature, and also just sort of beautifully expressed autistic joy, which was really, really good to read. So yeah, I loved this. This was great, and I gave it 4 stars. So yeah, that was terrific. So that was my month. That was the month of June. I read 5 books. 4 of them I have physical copies of, and 1 of them I read on audiobook. I had a great time this month with my reading, and I'm looking forward to some more fantastic reading in the month of July. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.